The day a woman in a pastel blouse told me I needed approval to hammer a nail into my own roof, I was standing on top of a wooden shack I'd bought for $2 crumpled, sweat in my eyes, thinking life finally liked me for once. And then her voice cut through the heat like a summons from hell. "You can't do that without authorization," she snapped, pointing at my hammer like it was a weapon. She introduced herself as Diane Carver, president of the Maple Crest Estates HOA, chin tilted so high she might as well have been reading a coronation oath. Behind her sunglasses, I could see the look, the "I'm always right because I have a clipboard" kind of look. I laughed. "Lady, I bought this place for $2 at a county tax auction. Out here in Raven Ridge, there is no HOA." Her smile turned syrupy. "Actually, as of last May, this parcel falls under Maple Crest Estates HOA jurisdiction. We've annexed this area." One word stuck in my head like a splinter. Annexed. To understand why that word mattered, you've got to rewind. Months earlier, I was sitting in the Northridge County Courthouse, a tired old building that smelled like damp paper and coffee that died yesterday. A clerk read off auction lots in a monotone, barely awake. Then she said it. Parcel 12F, rural Raven Ridge. Wooden structure, built 1940s. Abandoned. Starting bid, $2. I honestly thought it was a typo. $2. Less than a gas station coffee. Less than a cheap burger. I raised my paddle as a joke, waiting for some investor in a pressed suit to outbid me. Nobody did. The clerk squinted over her glasses. $2. Any other bids? Silence. A lazy tap of the gavel. Sold to bidder 34. I paid with 2 wrinkled bills from my pocket, walked out grinning like I'd cheated the universe, then drove up to see what I'd actually bought. The place looked like it would fall over if you sneezed too hard. Weathered boards, crooked chimney, windows punched out by some long-dead storm. The porch screamed every time you stepped on it. No power, no plumbing, no insulation, just a tired wooden skeleton clinging to the hillside. I told my friends at the bar I'd bought, kindling with a front door. We laughed, and for 6 months I never went back. Life happened. Work, bills, distractions. The house became a funny story I told over cheap beer. Then the fire came. They said it started with a lightning strike in the dry hills west of town. By nightfall, the sky over Raven Ridge glowed angry orange. News anchors wore masks, ash swirling around them like dirty snow. Entire slopes went black. $1 million cabins, fancy lodges, vacation homes, all gone. When the fire finally died, curiosity dragged me back. I drove up through miles of charred forest, past stone chimneys standing alone where houses used to be, past melted mailboxes and twisted cars. It looked like the end of the world. And there, in the middle of all that ruin, was my stupid, crooked $2 shack. Scorched, sure. Roof half gone, boards blackened, but standing. My worthless joke had become the last surviving structure in a newly designated luxury redevelopment zone. Developers circled like hawks. One offered me $2 million. Another came in at $5 million. Zillow screamed something insane, like $10 million. That's when I realized I wasn't sitting on a joke. I was sitting on a jackpot. And that's when the vultures and business casual showed up. The first notice appeared the Monday after Diane Carver's driveway performance. A paper stapled crookedly to my door. Unauthorized structural modification. Fine, $2,750. Signed, in dramatic loops, Diane Carver, President, Maple Crest Estates HOA. Apparently, patching a hole in my own roof counted as a crime now. I crumpled it and tossed it in the trash. Tuesday. Non-compliant roof color. The shingles I'd picked up from a salvage yard apparently weren't approved by Her Royal Highness's color palette. Another fine. Wednesday. Unauthorized vehicle storage. That was my old red pickup parked on my own gravel. Friday. Failure to submit property title for HOA review. That one stopped me. Property title? HOA review? By Sunday, my front door looked like a bulletin board of insanity. Notices about excessive grass length, even though the hillside around me was still black ash with a few miserable weeds. It hit me like cold water. This wasn't some annoying paperwork game. They were building a fake record, a paper trail to make it look like my land had always been under Maple Crest control. If they could make the county believe that $10 million worth of miracle house and land might quietly slide into their hands. I decided if they wanted to play games with paper, I'd play with proof. Right after the wildfire, I put up a few trail cameras along the property line, mostly to catch looters, nosy developers, maybe the odd coyote. Now they became my insurance policy. 2 weeks after that first stack of fines, my phone buzzed at 2 a.m. motion detected. I opened the app and saw 3 people on my land, Diane and 2 guys in polos. One tried the shed door. Another shined a flashlight into my windows. Diane walked behind them, hugging a folder, jotting notes like she was on an official inspection. I saved the footage. Then I backed it up. Twice. Next stop, the Northridge County Recorder's Office. I asked about this so-called annexation of Raven Ridge by Maple Crest Estates HOA. After a long, irritated search, the clerk finally pulled 2 maps and a filing log. The HOA expansion map showed my parcel inside their boundary, sure, but the timestamp was wrong, submitted 3 weeks after the legal deadline, signatures clearly backdated. The clerk frowned. This isn't sloppy. This looks intentional. Now I had 2 things. Video of trespass and proof their land grab was written in lies. But I knew evidence only matters if you swing it in the right direction and loud enough that everyone hears it. That's when I called my cousin, Rachel Miles, a municipal code officer in the next county over, the kind of woman who sleeps with a stack of zoning laws on her nightstand and enjoys it. When I told Rachel everything, she didn't even hesitate. They forged annexation records to steal a conservation parcel worth 8 figures, she said. That's not a nuisance. That's felony territory. Don't sign a single thing. I'm coming up this week. For the first time since this circus started, I felt like I wasn't alone on that hill. Rachel Miles rolled up my gravel drive in her city SUV like a sheriff in a western, aviators on, badge on her belt, clipboard under her arm. She didn't waste time. Show me the files, she said. I handed over everything. The bogus fines, the forged map, the timestamps, the trail cam footage on a flash drive. She skimmed like she'd done this 1,000 times, jaw tightening. This isn't just overreach, she muttered. This is attempted acquisition of protected land. Protected? I asked. She smirked. Did no one tell you Raven Ridge was rezoned as a cultural conservation overlay back in the 90s? Your land isn't just outside their reach. It's basically wrapped in barbed wire, legally. Any annexation across that line without a full review is absolutely 100% illegal. Before I could fully absorb the word protected, tires crunched at the edge of my driveway. Same silver luxury car. Same woman in pearls. Diane Carver stepped out like she owned the mountain, this time with a nervous-looking attorney clutching a briefcase. We're here to resolve a misunderstanding, she declared. Rachel didn't flinch. Unless you have a warrant, you're trespassing. Turn around. The lawyer cleared his throat. Under Article 14 of the Maple Crest Estates HOA Charter, any parcel within our expansion zone is subordinate to state conservation law. Rachel cut in, voice like a razor. And your so-called expansion crossed into a protected district without review, without notice, and without municipal approval. That's not a misunderstanding. That's a violation of criminal code. For the first time, I saw it, a crack in Diane's perfect composure. They left, but they didn't retreat. By Monday, the fines doubled. Certified letters arrived accusing me of ignoring community standards, demanding I submit my title for verification. The message was clear. Hand over the deed or drown in paperwork. Then came the cease and desist letter from their new lawyer. 8 pages accusing me of defamation and malicious obstruction of governance, threatening a $5 million lawsuit if I didn't shut up. I laughed reading it, but Rachel didn't. They're trying to flip this, make you the aggressor, she said. We need this out of HOA territory and into criminal court. That's when Rachel looped in Detective Mark Salgado, a quiet, meticulous county investigator who looked like he color-coded his socks. He went through my folder, page by page. Fines don't justify this much risk, he murmured. People commit felonies for big paydays, not petty HOA fees. There's another angle here. Financial motive. We didn't have to wait long to find it. A few days later, an older man knocked on my door, tall but stooped, clutching a battered briefcase. Name's Henry Cole, he said. I started the Maple Crest Estates HOA 30 years ago. It was supposed to keep people from painting their roofs neon orange, not whatever this is. He pulled out the original charter, yellowed pages covered in old pen marks. See this, he said, tapping a line that had been struck out in red. Expansion into conservation districts upon board approval. We removed that clause in 1999. Too dangerous. Too easy to abuse. Then he handed me a newer, cleaner version, the one Diane's board had filed with the county. The clause was back. They resurrected an old draft we rejected, Henry said quietly. They filed it as if it were law. That's not sloppiness. That's forgery. I made copies of everything, thanked him, and watched him walk back down the drive, shoulders heavy. They won't stop until someone stops them, he warned. Be careful. People like that don't go down gentle. With Henry's testimony and the altered charter in hand, Rachel took the whole mess to Aaron Blake, a district attorney known for treating fraud cases like personal insults. When we met at the courthouse, Aaron flipped through the evidence with surgical calm. We've got falsified filings, forged dates, trespass, attempted land seizure, she said. And now we have the original founder willing to testify that this charter clause is fabricated. That's devastating. She looked up at me. We're bringing this to the next town council meeting. Public. On record. That meeting turned our quiet mountain town of Silverton into a courtroom drama. The chamber was packed. Homeowners, reporters, even officials from neighboring towns. HOA rumors travel fast. People were angry, scared, hopeful, all at the same time. At the front, the council shuffled papers, clearly nervous. Then Diane walked in, pearls blazing under fluorescent lights, her lawyer trailing her like a dying satellite. When public comment opened, Rachel stepped to the mic, badge glinting. The Maple Crest Estates HOA has knowingly filed expansion documents that violate state conservation zoning. She began, voice steady but sharp. They attempted to seize private property using forged maps, backdated filings, and fraudulent fines. We have certified records and surveillance footage. She held up the annexation map, blown up for everyone to see. Filing date, weeks late. Signature, Diane Carver. The room buzzed. Then Rachel clicked a remote, and my trail cam footage lit up the projector, Diane and her cronies creeping around my property at night, jiggling my shed lock, shining flashlights into windows. Attempted unlawful entry, Rachel said evenly. On land never legally under their jurisdiction. The place erupted. Shouts. Boos. Reporters scribbling like their lives depended on it. The council president, sweating through his shirt, finally banged the gavel. Effective immediately, he said, voice shaky but loud. All Maple Crest Estates HOA expansion rights are suspended, and enforcement in Raven Ridge is frozen pending criminal investigation. Diane went rigid, then stormed out, heels cracking against the floor like gunshots. I went home that night and sat on my crooked porch, listening to the cicadas, the charred hillside breathing in the dark. I thought that might be the end. It was just the end of Act 2. Because what came next proved Rachel right. People like Diane don't back down. They escalate. The fallout came fast. Auditors dove into Maple Crest's books and came back with dynamite. Over $400,000 funneled through fake landscaping companies and shell vendors, invoices for work never done, checks written to nowhere, all signed off by Diane and her inner circle. Residents started talking. An elderly couple who'd paid thousands in pet noise, fines even though they didn't own a dog. A single mom fined for unauthorized play equipment because her kids had a plastic kiddie pool. A retired mechanic whose fence line Diane had used to justify expansion, then slapped with non-conforming structure fees. At a press conference, DA Aaron Blake laid it out clean and cold. The Maple Crest Estates HOA has engaged in a pattern of fraud, embezzlement, and attempted land theft, she said. Arrest warrants have been issued for multiple board members, including President Diane Carver. Watching Diane led away in handcuffs on the local news, pearls still on, eyes hollow, should have felt like the final scene. Her charges stacked up: forgery, wire fraud, conspiracy, attempted unlawful annexation. She faced up to 12 years. Months later, at sentencing, Aaron asked me to testify. I hate public speaking, but I kept thinking about that single mom, that old couple, the mechanic. So I stood up. I bought a wooden house for $2 as a joke. I told the court, voice shaking at first, then steadying. A fire turned it into a miracle. Greed turned it into a battlefield. This wasn't about tidy lawns or matching mailboxes. It was about people who thought a clipboard and a title gave them the right to steal what wasn't theirs. When they couldn't take my land quietly, they tried to bury me in fines, threats, and fake rules. They forgot one thing: paper burns. The truth doesn't. The room went quiet. Diane stared straight ahead, unblinking. The judge sentenced her to 12 years in federal prison, restitution to every resident she'd squeezed, and a lifetime ban from any fiduciary role. Other board members got less time, but all of them were barred from ever touching HOA power again. Maple Crest Estates HOA was dissolved. Its accounts frozen, its assets seized. Outside the courthouse, the retired mechanic clapped me on the back and handed me a dented flask. To the man who turned $2 into justice, he said. We drank on the steps. It burned, but it tasted like victory. For a week, it felt like the story was over. Then I found the note. Folded under my windshield wiper, weighted with a small stone. No name. No return address. Just 3 words printed in block capitals. Check the well. My stomach dropped. Behind the house, half swallowed by pine needles and thyme, sat an old stone well I'd never bothered with, covered by a rusted grate. Now, when I touched the hinges, they moved too smoothly. Someone had oiled them. I lifted the grate, lowered a flashlight into the darkness. 20 feet down, something metal glinted against the stone, a lockbox wedged deliberately into the wall. Hard hammering. I climbed down on a rope ladder, fingers scraping cold rock, hauled the box up, and forced it open on the porch. Inside, neatly stacked documents, receipts, and a flash drive. The receipts all carried one name: Summit Geo Resources, an energy contractor specializing in subsurface mapping and mineral surveys. The plan showed an underground pipeline route cutting straight across my property. The flash drive contained audio, Diane's voice, clear as a bell. We'll push the claim through the HOA charter first, she said. Once we have the parcel, Summit Geo gets the green light to start test drilling. Nobody reads conservation contracts anymore. If the owner fights, we bury him in violations until he sells or breaks. My hands shook with anger, so hot it felt cold. This had never just been about my house, or even the land value. It was about what lay beneath: shale gas, lithium, something worth enough that a homeowners association and a corporation decided the law was optional. I took everything straight to Rachel. She listened to the audio, eyes narrowing, then called Aaron. By morning, federal agents in unmarked SUVs were walking my ridge, badges flipped open. One of them, Agent Porter, crouched by a bright survey flag half hidden in the dirt, brushed it aside, and revealed a code: SJAR 3A. These were placed within the last 6 months, he said. They were getting ready to sell mineral rights and start drilling under the cover of your HOA annexation. Summit Geo Resources knew exactly what they were buying. Search warrants flew. Federal marshals hit Summit Geo's offices, seizing servers, contracts, internal memos. One leaked email spelled it out. Summit had accepted Maple Crest's forged annexation as sufficient legal cover to proceed in a protected zone, in exchange for administrative consideration, a polite phrase for kickbacks. Already jailed, Diane caught new charges: racketeering, conspiracy with a corporate partner, attempted mineral rights theft. Whatever hope she had of a quiet parole hearing evaporated. In Silverton, the town council held one last, furious meeting. Residents lined up, story after story pouring out, not just about bogus fines, but about being made to feel small in their own homes, about years of being told they didn't fit the community aesthetic because they were older, poorer, louder, different. The council voted unanimously to kill Maple Crest forever and passed a new ordinance. No HOA expansion ever again, without a 2/3 vote of affected owners and an independent state review. When it was my turn at the podium, I thought about my future kids or grandkids, about neighbors who felt like family even if we didn't share blood, about how close we all came to losing a place that had survived fire and time. I bought a wooden house for $2, I said. Everyone thought it was worthless. A wildfire, a greedy HOA, and a crooked company turned it into a battlefield. But this isn't just my story. It's every person who's ever had someone with a clipboard tell them they don't belong on their own land. Power dressed up as community. Greed hiding behind rules. We stopped it this time. But greed doesn't die. It waits. So next time it shows up, I hope somebody else on some other hill remembers this and stands their ground too. The room erupted in real applause. Not polite, but relieved, raw. Back at Raven Ridge, life got quiet. I rebuilt the roof with reclaimed cedar, shored up the old chimney, planted wildflowers where ash once covered everything. At the end of the gravel drive, I put up a new sign carved by a local guy. People still drive by, slowing down to stare at the $2 Miracle House. Some wave. Some just look. I don't wave back much, but I leave the porch light on. This land isn't conquered. It's kept. Sometimes, late at night, I think about how close I came to losing all of it because a handful of people decided their titles made them kings. And I wonder how many others never got their miracle wildfire, their cousin in code enforcement, their stubborn old founder with a dusty briefcase of truth. So I'll end this the way I wish someone had asked me years earlier. If you saw an HOA or any authority twisting rules to rob people of their homes, their peace, their future, what would you do? Stand by and hope it misses you? Or stand up and risk everything to stop it?